I am Brother Winston Batiste, Master Mason of Lodge Arima 899 SC, on the roll of the Grand Lodge of Scotland. And I am very appreciative of Lodge Hesperus for asking me to do a presentation on the theme Masonry and Spirituality. But before I begin, let me, by way of introduction, share a few standout career experiences with you. My father was a member of a Roman Catholic order, the Knights of St. John, and he would have liked me to follow in his footsteps. However, after my initiation, he happily passed some of his uncle's Masonic books to me and said, if Uncle Jules was a Mason, it had to be a good thing. The ink did not have time to dry on my second degree certificate. When I had the good fortune of being raised to the sublime degree of a Master Mason, in the presence of a past most worshipful Grand Master Mason, David Little Granger of Iton. I also have fond memories of delivering the first degree tracing board lecture for a candidate that went on to become District Grand Master. And to crown it all, I am ever grateful to distinguished Brother Lionel Simongal for inviting me to become a member of his Masonic research team. That the subject matter is challenging cannot be denied. Masonry as it existed in Egypt, together with its post-Pythagoras incarnations, has had a lifespan of about 5,000 years. During this time, a temple was built in Old Memphis with the symmetry and proportion of a man, because every man was seen as a microcosm of the macrocosm. The secrets of this design was shared with the Phoenicians, whose King Hiram got a contract to design and build a temple of stone in Jerusalem to replace the tents used in the desert. The high priest tradition died at the end of the Jewish covenant around 588 BC, and a period of spiritual decline followed. In the end, the book of Revelation takes up the story, describing how restoration will be engineered in our time. As part of the decline predicted in one of Nebuchadnezzar's dreams, a significant gap developed between the ancient Masonic approach to spirituality and the post-Pythagoras philosophical thought processes of modern Masons. But even so, I am comfortable with the topic because I have written a book related to the subject, and I am pleased to draw from it here on this occasion. Before the flowering of Greek intellectualism, all the major ancient traditions held the view that there was a connection between what is in the heavens and what is here on earth. In other words, the minds of humans and the minds of the cosmos coexist in one unified field of being that mirror and reflect one another. Plato, approximately 2500 years ago, said in his treatise The Timaeus, "The cosmos is a living being endowed with soul and intelligence." We know from this that Plato subscribed to the ancient worldview at some point in his life. But we also know that Greek Hellenism took root in the Western world and changed mankind's view of his spiritual relationship with the energies of the cosmos. Today, a Mason would say, "I am a Christian," or "I am a Muslim," because I believe in one or the other of two religious heroes. However, in ancient times, before the philosophical mind evolved, wise men who wished to identify with something in a religious way would get a breakdown of the attributes of that principle and seek to internalize them. The workshop of life would present obstacles, and when they overcame them, they became living images of the selected principle on earth. Egyptian Masons spoke of this process of becoming as building a house. An inscription in the tomb of one successful Mason read as follows: "I built a house according to what Ptah, or the great architect, hath commanded." Every individual has two basic imperatives to deal with in life: survival and the urge to reach out to some enigmatic, boundless state of being. Survival could be achieved in a negative way, or alternatively in a positive way, because nature has opened up our five senses enough to ensure our survival. But if the urge to reach out is not managed, it could lead to the excesses of greed and attachment. What then is the answer? Could a Mason build a proper house using only the stuff of which religious beliefs are made? The short answer is no. Believing does not provide us with the knowledge of how to get back to the Creator source from whence we came. Packaged religions are models of thought that can only be gathered through the five senses. If a Mason does not tie himself down by identifying solely with limited religious thought forms, then it is possible for him to manage himself experientially back to the source from whence he came. To do this, he must overcome relevant obstacles in the workshop of life, thereby gaining access to knowledge hidden within his being, which itself exists outside the limits of physicality. The mechanism that makes this possible is described in Revelation as the tree of life. Countless articles and books on modern Freemasonry are available for the edification of the brethren. For this reason, I have decided to focus my attention on ancient masonry and how the principles of cyclical time apply to us at our point in linear development. But first, I would like to see what meaning I am applying to the modern words masonry and spirituality. In the world of symbolic or speculative Freemasonry, the meaning of the word masonry is self-evident. Masons profess to admire certain precepts and ways of doing things, but advancement in the craft does not depend on how relevant attributes are displayed in the workshop of life. A modern Mason is not required to stand out as a pillar of virtue in the profane world. One modern definition of spirituality asserts that it is a broad concept with room for many perspectives. In general, it includes a sense of connection to something bigger than ourselves, and it typically involves a search for meaning in life. As such, it is a universal human experience, something that touches us all. May I respectfully suggest that no Egyptian priest or Mason would have seen merit in the above stated conventional meaning of Masonry and spirituality. They saw things the way Jesus did when he said, "Let your speech be yes or no. Anything beyond that is falsehood." In Egypt, 5,000 years ago, Masonry in its ultimate formulation was deemed to be introspective. Back in the day, the term speculative Masonry would have been seen as contradictory. Abstract words like concept and perspectives had no place in Egyptian picture language. Masonic spirituality had everything to do with truth. As their symbol of the all-seeing eye shows, the truth could only be seen from the center looking outward. Any other view is a perspective that may not be the whole truth. Historically, on the linear time chart, operative masonry started when Egyptian society was moving from the stone to the Bronze Age. At that time, building in stone was the cutting-edge technology. These changes were taking place in Egypt, where the inhabitants saw the planet, the universe, and mankind's link to its maker in a very clear and precise way. In this order of thought, every human being was seen as a microcosm of the macrocosm. The various constellations had their own peculiar attributes that humans could choose to emulate. However, Ptah, who is the creator or great architect, was the patron deity of the Egyptian Masonic system. Interestingly, we Masons simulate a diurnal cycle when we open and close a lodge, because cyclical time was important to the Egyptians. The annual pilgrimage of the earth around the sun took us through 4 seasons, 2 solstices, and 2 equinoxes. which were all seen in a religious way. We also perambulate a lodge to simulate the wobbling of the earth on its axis. It completes one of these cycles in approximately 26,000 years. During one of these cycles, the earth transitions through 12 constellations, which are ruled by the 24 elders mentioned in chapter 4 of the book of Revelation. Two of these elders rule an age. They appear to human beings as cherubs or lion birds, and in King Solomon's temple, images of the two ruling cherubs of the age are to be found behind a throne in the Holy of Holies. Circumambulation of the white walls of Memphis was an important part of the initiation ceremony of a pharaoh who had access to the Holy of Holies, because he was also required to have attained the rank of high priest. All the major ancient traditions also held the view that mankind was evolving in a linear way within the framework of the cyclical return. And because of his inability to consistently maintain socio-political order, 5 chaotic breakdowns occur in every precession of the equinoxes. The last creation cycle started in 3114 BC and ended on December 21st, 2012, by Maya reckoning. According to the wisdom of the ancients, our planet will descend into chaos at this point in cyclical time. But even so, this would soon be followed by the renovation phase of the proverbial death and resurrection cycle. In this order of thought, spirituality was related to electrics, and our ancient brethren knew that there was a limit to the amount of socio-political imbalance that the cosmos and the cherubs are willing to tolerate. The wise men of old also knew that the whole human family is electrically wired together, and that these global transformations have small mustard seed beginnings. Behaviors manifested in old Memphis indicated that the conflict between earth and sea people was reaching sodomic proportions, and corrective action had to be taken. I use the term earth and sea peoples because it is the symbolic language used in the book of Revelation. This is really nothing new. It simply makes the point that from a cosmic point of view, the human family is not divided into races, but into two types who comprise the Cains and Abels of the world. This peculiar mixture of people that set the stage for divine play is manifested in the socio-political earth-sea creature that is engineered by the energies of the constellation of Capricorn. The signs we are to look for to identify the end times divine play are those of the symbolic holy city, Sodom and Egypt, mentioned in Revelation chapter 11. In other words, Sodomic conditions would appear where Capricorn energies and those of the Pleiades are active. Interestingly, the Pleiades are 7 stars in the constellation of Taurus, which are displayed in our lodges. These stars are associated with the mysteries and are linked to a level of initiation beyond the original 7-degree system that our ancient brethren used. In a divine play, the universe overrides the will of man to bring about prophesied results. In this case, the return to order to which Revelation 11 alludes is to be achieved by way of a system called the Ark of the Covenant in the Bible. In the Egyptian version, a temple was built in Memphis, wherein sea and earth people agreed to adhere to the same rules of good order. The Pharaoh was bound through initiation by the same rules, and he was required to manage the system and account to the cherubs through an institution called the temple. What then does this temple principle mean to a modern Mason? We know that over the last 2,500 years, the focus of religion moved from experiential learning through initiatory processes to the current prescriptive learning approach that we use today. But when the cherubs made a presentation to John, the author of Revelation, they indicated to him that there will be no need for physical temple structures and prescriptive learning when the process of renovation begins. In symbolic language, John writes as follows: I saw no temple therein, the holy city, Sodom and Egypt, for the Lord God Almighty and the Lamb are the temple of it. And the city had no need of the sun, neither of the moon, to shine in it. For the glory of God did enlighten it, and the Lamb is the light thereof. In other words, there will occur a meeting of heaven and earth. Some human being will cross the linear finish line that separates Homo sapiens man, the hunter, from the olive tree or peaceful man. The process involved will be experiential, and it is described in chapters 2 and 3 of Revelation, which end with Jesus saying, To him that overcometh, I will grant to sit with me in my throne, even as I also overcame, and am set down with my Father in his throne. We became Masons because something inside made us reach out to the world of experiential learning. Although the secret revealed in Revelation remained hidden from the craft. Now the challenge facing us is that of becoming living images of the principles we profess to admire. To my mind, the message hidden in Revelation is that we would have the pleasure of experiencing a renovated world if we become the changes we wish to see.